In this post, I'm going to be talking about how you take the speaking map, which we've talked about in several posts in the past, and the listening map, and then put them together to be able to show you how to use the speaking and listening process to resolve issues successfully. Now you'll notice I use the word issue rather than conflict. It's only when you fail to resolve the issue successfully that I think it turns into conflict, and it does then generate a lot of emotional baggage. Here is the speaking map and the listening map side by side, and we covered each phase of the listening map in a prior post, and we covered each phase of the speaking map in a prior post. So I say that certain processes are better off using authentic conversations than any other kind of conversational format. So these processes are collaborative processes, planning and decision making, breakdown resolution, issue resolution, and if the issue doesn't get resolved correctly, conflict resolution. All of these processes benefit from authentic speaking and authentic listening. So for example, collaboration, unlocks creative genius. When you collaborate fully and authentically, you get high levels of input from all of your team members. All your team members are fully self-expressed. It produces better business results because it brings all the data to the process. So there are a lot of areas where issues might arise for teams and team members. One of them is miscommitments. Priority conflicts. One team member needs a resource that another team member needs at the same time. Determining the best course of action isn't always easy or obvious. You have technological choices that the team has to make, and you also have a project strategy. How you're going to get from A to B, how you're going to achieve the objectives, how you're going to structure the project. You can have issues arise there where different people have different opinions. Resource constraints are always an issue. Project breakdowns will occur no matter how well the project is planned, and how well you handle those breakdowns depends on your willingness to have open and authentic conversation. And sometimes there are personality conflicts. Now, I leave that last in this discussion, mainly because I think personality conflicts, in my experience, don't arise as a natural course of events. They arise when you haven't handled issues properly, or you try to push issues under a rug, or you try to overwhelm issues by asserting your authority or things of that nature. So when you're looking to have an authentic conversation, I believe it's best to declare that and to plan it. So first of all, decide who's involved, when do you want to have the conversation, get their permission to have the conversation or agreement, decide where's the best place to have the conversation, and many times the best place is not in one or the other person's office, but a conference room or even off-site. How long will you need? And here's a case where if you think you need an hour, my recommendation is you take 2 hours, or you schedule 2 hours. If you think you need 2 hours, my recommendation is you schedule 3.5 hours. What you don't want to do in an authentic conversation is have time be an element, and you don't want to play beat the clock. You want to have ample time to fully resolve the issue. And then also agree on safety valves. That means you agree on if things get heated, we can time out. We can call a timeout. We can kind of catch our breath, take a break, come back at it. And the other thing we can say as a safety valve is anyone can declare a process check, which that means is that you decided to start with one kind of concern, and during the course of the conversation, you're bringing 2 or 3 kinds of concerns into the conversation. That's not very workable. Authentic conversations are best done with one concern at a time. So if somebody's trying to introduce a new concern, somebody can say, time out, let's do a process check. We came here to address this concern. Now I'm hearing this concern coming into the conversation. I don't mind dealing with that concern, but I'd like to deal with that concern second. Let's stick with the concern that we started with. Or maybe that concern has a higher priority and has to get resolved first, then let's deal with that concern. That's fine. Once you have an agreement to resolve the issue, you're going to strive to gain understanding first. So that means the person who wanted to have the conversation starts, and they start with their concern and their commitment. They state their facts. They essentially give their interpretations given the facts that they stated. Then they state their feelings, and the other person is just listening. And like we said in the listening map, the other person is focusing on what's being said. They're acknowledging empathetically if it's appropriate. When the person pauses, they don't immediately go into their speaking mode. They check to see if the person is complete by saying, "Are you done?" or "Is that all?" After the speaker is done, the listener then checks out their understanding by reiterating back in their words what they heard the speaker say. And if there's an appropriate reason to have a question or two answered, they would ask questions. So you'll see here that you'll cycle back and forth. So the speaker first goes through their 4 elements and the listener listens. Then the listener now goes through their 4 elements, stating their concern, their facts, their interpretations, their feelings, and then the speaker listens. And you keep cycling back and forth until you literally have handled all of the elements of the conversation relative to gaining understanding on what the concern is, what the facts are, what the interpretations are, and how people feel about it. Now, I have to say this, listening is very critical to this conversation. And the key to authentic listening is making sure you're listening to learn. In fact, an excellent test for listening is essentially, did you learn something? And if you didn't learn something, you probably weren't listening. So now once you reach essentially understanding, the next step is to reach agreement. So now what we're going to do, the person who started the conversation is going to say what they want for themselves, what they want for the other, what they want for the team, what possibilities and opportunities they see to resolve the issue, and what actions they would like to take or what actions they would like the other person to take, and ultimately would resolve in a set of promises to each other to handle certain parts of the issue. Now this gets cycled back and forth until agreement is reached, where the speaker states those 3 things and the listener then honors their listening map and ultimately reflects back what they heard, and then the listener is able to speak what they want, what they think is possible, what they think the opportunity is, and what actions they want to have. And you keep cycling back and forth until agreement is reached. You might have to go to other parts of the speaking map, because this is not exactly a linear process. It is a process of iteration. So if you have to go back to the facts and back to interpretations, once you've gotten this far, it's easy to go back and forth and essentially enter in some new facts and new interpretations in order to, again, help each party resolve their concerns and resolve the issue between them. So that's it in a kind of a summarized fashion. When we work with teams of people, we actually do these conversations real time, on the mat, so to speak, literally, and people have a chance to walk their speaking map and walk their listening map, and you'd be surprised how many what seem to be intractable issues got resolved very quickly by one, having a defined process to resolve the issue, staying focused on the key aspects of speaking and listening, and more importantly, slowing down the conversation so people can separate the facts from their interpretations and begin to express feelings that are really feelings and begin to look at what they want, what they think is possible, and ultimately it always results in positive action that will in fact resolve the issue. This completes my posts on the speaking and listening map. This post here now puts it all together, but if you want to go back to the speaking map and really review that in more detail, and the listening map and review that in more detail, and begin to practice the process that I've outlined in this post, I believe you're going to be able to resolve your conflicts and resolve your issues very effectively. With practice, you can design extraordinary conversations that will improve relationship and trust between you and your team and team members. If you have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to contact me at Strategic Momentum.